2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Lo vedi? Ah, vai. A posto, grazie.
Si vede? Chiudo?
Dovrebbe apparire.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no?
Salve a tutti.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Buongiorno a chi è collegato.
Buongiorno.
Ci sono ancora 5 minuti. Abbiamo ancora 5 minuti e poi partiamo.
Posso fare una prova di condivisione della presentazione?
Sì, dai, presenta.
Vediamo un po' se va.
Sì, si vede.
Ok, si vede bene?
Sì, sì.
Come si interrompe? Chissà.
Interrompi in divisione.
Dovrei riuscire a rimettere lo schermo intero da qualche parte. Va. Ciao Adriano.
Ciao. Salve a tutti.
Ciao, ciao.
Buon pomeriggio a tutti, anche dal Centro Operativo Nazionale. Sono Lorenzo Elisa.
Buongiorno.
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 Appena.
Vai Ale. Possiamo andare.
Let's go. Good morning to everyone we stay in New York, and good afternoon with people we stay in Italy. And nowadays, in this meeting, we will talk about drought in Italy. Drought is a phenomenon that occurs especially in the last 20 years. And we talk about data, precipitation, drought, the intensity. We talk about the way in which we can prevent and mitigate the phenomenon. And we talk about the way in which we can manage the emergencies. And I want at first thank to the organizer of this meeting, my foundation, Health and Water Agenda, Crea, the Institute for Research in Agriculture, Policies and Bioeconomy, and the Emiliano Romagnolo Canal, that the most big canal, irrigation canal in Italy. And I want to thank also the participants, the speakers to this meeting that are going to intervene on this theme, and I'm sure that we'll bring many interesting things about this phenomenon for the Italy. I think that we can start, and the first speaker am I intervene. I will talk about, I will make a general and brief overview of the problem of drought in Italy. I give some data and some interpretation of the phenomenon, and some topic for policies of mitigation. And I start saying that in a counterfactual way, we can say that Italy is a raining country. if we compare the precipitations in Italy compared to the rest of the world, we are at the same level. And if we compare with the other European countries, precipitation in Italy are more and more over the European average. And then we can say that in Italy, there is not a structural lakeness of water, but we have some condition that could bring to the drought in some condition, in some territories, and some times. We have two conditions linked to the fact that the climate of Italy is a Mediterranean climate, and we have two conditions, two critical conditions. The first one is the temperature. In Italy, if we have on average 300 billion of cubic meters of precipitation, we have more than half of this resource that we lost, caused by the evapotranspiration. And then we have quite half of the resource that it's not at disposal of the human needs. And then we have another condition, that is the variability of the precipitation. That is a critical point. We have three kinds of variability in Italy in the precipitation. I may share some slide. Three conditions. The first one is the annual average of precipitation. In the last 20 years, we have a very high peak in 2010 with 371 billion of cubic meters of precipitation. In the last year, 2022, we have the lesser level of precipitation with 210. The difference between this year, only 10 years of lag, is 160 billion of cubic meters. Is a very, very high difference. And then the second variability is that of the territories. We have Friuli Venezia Giulia with 650 millimeters of precipitation in a year. And then we have Puglia with 648 millimeters of precipitation. We can say that in Puglia, rain almost one third of the Friuli Venezia Giulia. The difference is very, very high. And then the third variability, more linked to the typical climate, Mediterranean climate of Italy, is the difference between wet season and dry season. In November, we have 175 millimeters per month of precipitation, and in July we have 48 millimeters. Also in this case, we have a very, very big difference. Well, this variability that we suppose, we assert, after my intervention will be the intervention of the speech of Paola Mercogliano, that we talk about the effect on the water of the climate change. we know that in the future, this variability, these three kinds of variability, maybe will be stronger than now. And then this situation in Italy can become more serious, more critical. And then we had seven phenomenon of drought in Italy in the last 20 years. And maybe that the phenomenon will be in the future, the next future, more frequent and more intense. And then we have to do policies in order to tackle, in order to mitigate this situation. We have four kinds of policies in order to answer to this problem. The first one policy is more accumulation. We have to do new dams and reservoirs, aquifer, recharge. I think that Rudy Rossetto will talk about aquifer recharge, the way in which we can do it, and remove silt from dams. Remove silt because in Italy we have 4 billion of cubic meters of silt that cover the dams. We have to reduce loss on supply water, new aqueducts, irrigation pipes, and maintenance of the old infrastructures, because we have all the infrastructures and we lost a high quantity of water in the distribution. Nowadays, we lost 7 billion of cubic meters of water, very, very high volume of water. The third is the greater efficiency in the use of water. We have to apply in the agriculture precision and drip irrigation. In some cases where the situation of drought tend to become more structural, we have to move from high water intensive crop towards less water intensive crop, because it's very difficult to continue to cultivate water intensive crops if the drought becomes structural. The last one, but not least, is alternative water availability, because we can produce more water by the desalination plant, as in the other part of the world, or reusing wastewater, because the amount of water we have of wastewater is very, very high. We know that the level is 9 billion of cubic meters of water. I finish my speech saying that these policies are in a technical way feasible. We need a long-term plan, because we cannot intervene in this case only in a spot opera, in a spot work. We have to have much money at the disposal, because nowadays we have very few money in this area. And then we have to support these policies with science and technology. We have several innovations that could be solve this problem. But I finish on that. But the most important thing, I think, that is to have a coordination of the policies. because policies have to be integrated. And then in the water, we have many subjects that have an interest, have competencies, have aims, different aims, and so on. And then we have to have a coordination, a strong coordination at a central level. In these days, actual government, Italian government, try to individuate and coordinator of to individuate a director of the water. Yesterday choose one solution, but for my view, it's too weak. It's not appropriate to the level of the problem. We have to have a very strong level of central coordination. Without that, I think that it's very difficult, it's not impossible to realize a long-term plan for water. Thank you. I finish. I leave the word to the next speaker. I want to introduce Alessandra Pesce of Crea. I leave the word. Alessandra.
Thank you very much, Mauro. Thank you for having introduced me, and also for underline some important issues about water management. And thank you also for the organization altogether with of this side event, because I think that in these days water has received the attention it deserves. Unfortunately, this attention is due to the serious problems of scarcity that have affected all our planet in these last years, and also in these last months. I think that preserving water for civil uses, but also for agriculture, is one of the main research drivers of Crea. Crea, you say, there is the National Center of Research on agri-food and on agricultural economy. But also in particular for the center of research that I manage, which is called Policies and the Economy. I just want to spend 2 words on Crea, just to have a framework. We are the leading Italian research organization that is dedicated to the agri-food supply chain, and our scientific activity covers agricultural crops, livestock, fishery, forestry, agro-industry, food science, and socio-economics topic. And so our know-how ranges from genetics and physiology to robotics, to also all the techniques and also the economics on water management. And now I want to focus on this. We have also several farms and experimental fields where we can do a lot of experimentation on techniques, and also on the impact of the new technologies, of the precision farming, and so on. So I think it's important to underline the role of the Crea in this framework, because it is not only there are not only activities on the management, but also on the innovation and the new technologies that are devoted to the water management. So this is an important thing to underline. We just to go to the to our activities. I'll try to share with you just 2 slides, not more than these, which are the activities that I don't know if you can see it, what you can see it also, if this is okay. Okay, can you see it? Can you see the slide?
We see.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just to be sure. We have 2 types, 2 main activities that are the technical assistance activities with the Ministry of Agriculture, and also the research activities. I think that today you will have the presentation of 2 types of activity that we make for the technical assistance. First of all, the policy papers and the technical support on CAP, and on this issue, Raffaella Pergamo will discuss what are the choices that Italy has made for the National Strategic Plan on Agriculture, with the resource of the CAP, of the Common Agricultural Policy. And another very strong activity is the development of national database for the water management in agriculture. These 2 databases are called Sigrian and Dania, and also for these 2 activities, Veronica and Veronica Manganiello and Marianna Ferrigno will explain you which are the topics on these 2 databases, and the importance to know well the situation of the management of water, also related to the investment. Mauro, you said before we need money, but also we need to spend better our money. I think that this message should be stressed very in a very strong way, and also we have several research activities, not only, as I said, on the socioeconomic field, but also on the environmental and sustainability issues. First of all, with the analysis of indicators of sustainability of water use, on the impact of ecosystem services, and also with the participation on with in national, European, and international committee, such as OECD, PRIMA, and also WASAG, which is for which we are the focal point, the national focal point. We have also several agreements and programs of this exchange, not only with the university, but also with the research center in Europe and outside Europe too. I think that the role that I have today now for me is just to explain the wide experience that CREA has on this topic, and also the necessity to share as better the knowledge, the know-how, the data and also the technologies that are related to the water management. You say there is the necessity to have a coordinator at national level of the water issue. I think that it's important, first of all, to share our competence, our know-how, and also to give each other the right contribution in developing the strategy, the national strategy that you said. So I'm very glad to stay here and to have in this meeting not only colleagues from CREA, but also from CNR, also from INEA, because I think that sharing our experience is the best way to give the right strategy and the right objectives in defining the sustainable use of water in agriculture and in our food system. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra, and we go ahead, and I give the word to the Vice President of Utilitalia, Luca Dal Fabbro. Is there? Ecco. Thank you. Luca goes.
Do you hear me? Okay.
Sì, ora ti si sente.
I don't know if you see my presentation as well.
Yes.
Ah, fantastic. Okay. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. I heard the first two speeches, and thank you for the opportunity. I will go straight to the point because I would like to hear especially the others' intervention. So I will go directly to, let's say, the focus of what Utilitalia is trying to do in this context, and talking about the Italian issue with water for the next seasons. We have drafted a presentation. So first of all, what is Utilitalia? Probably you might already know what Utilitalia does. We serve about 80% of all the water distribution to people, 55% of the environmental services in Italy, 30% of the gas, and 15% of the energy distribution. Now, you already mentioned very well about the annual rainfall, and in your slides is clearly stated what is going on by regions. In particular, in these slides, I don't know if you see it, you can see that you know, the annual rainfall, millimeter of water per year, is decreasing dramatically. And in 2022, we had basically one of the lowest annual rainfall rates. And we don't know in 2023, but it doesn't look very well. Now, as Utilitalia and with the different you know, members of Utilitalia, we monitor the depth of the glaciers, and we have noticed a decreasing in the depth of the glaciers in all the Alps sectors. So there is also a shrinkage of the glaciers over the time, which of course will reduce the amount of water available during the dry season. And this means, of course, a lower level of reserves for the future. Another effect that we are monitoring is the salinization of the coastal, especially a couple of regions, in particular Puglia and the Romagna coasts, are affected by the fact that the Mediterranean sea level is increasing in the last century by 14 centimeters. And this means that the salty water penetrates the land surface, and this means contaminates the fresh water that feeds the vegetables, and this means all the food chain is at risk.
Excuse me, Luca, I think there is a problem with your presentation because there are several people that are not able to see your presentation.
You see
exactly why.
You see my presentation?
No, me no.
No.
Sorry.
You know, let me check. But someone is looking. I mean, you see my presentation or not?
We can see the front. Now is good.
If you are not in the presentation mode, we are able. If you go to the presentation mode.
Now you see it or not?
Yeah, but not in the presentation mode. It could be enough because it is visible. It's not a problem of size.
Let me check if now is better. Now is better?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it's better.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm not very expert on that, as you might have understood. Well, I was presenting these slides, but I will go straight to the desalinization effect. So we are very worried about the desalinization effect. And because of the level of the sea that increased by 14% in the last century, the salty water penetrates the land surface, and the food chain is a danger because vegetables do not have clean fresh water to tap in. Some of the evidence of the drought is the River Po, the Diga del Molato, and in Sardinia. On the other side, we have registered several heavy precipitation phenomena, and we have different type of heavy rains triggers flooding over control in Genoa, Rome, Palermo. So to cut the story short, we have on one side, lack of water in the glaciers, lack of water with salinization effect in the coasts, and on the other side, we have heavy rain. So what we say is that there is a tropicalization of the weather that is going on in Italy. So from a mild weather to let's say, tropical weather. Now, to go to the Utilitalia 8's proposal for adaptation, we are pushing a lot as an association to promote 8, let's say, key activities, action, promotions that we would like to, sensibilize all the institutions. So, and these covers the behavioral response, the infrastructural response, and the institutional response. So the first is to promote an efficient use of water resource. The second is develop and building of strategic infrastructure. In Italy, we lack of basic infrastructure, like, reservoirs in north of Italy, new dikes, new pumping units, and so on. Then we need to promote the efficient reuse. We basically waste all the water that is cleaned in the, let's say, cleaning plants. We don't reuse it in Italy, like in France, but we send it to the sea. We don't collect very well the water that falls. Only a very small percentage of the rainfalls is gathered, collected, and reused. Then, of course, the stop of salt wedge, which is a phenomenon that in Italy is very diffuse, and improve the water supply strategy. Imagine that more than 40% of all the water that we distribute as Utilitalia, we waste it in the pipes. So basically half, to simplify, of the water we pump in the system is lost because of, we have holes in the pipelines, in the valves, because the network is very old. So we need to improve the supply strategy, and of course, to invest in infrastructure. Then on the distributional response, we need to improve the governance of the river basin district, support the presence of industrial companies and their technologies. We need to foster the presence of industry in these sectors in order to allow them to invest and to innovate. And then, of course, also simplify the implementation of investment, just to make the concept clearer. The PNR foresees about 4 or 5 billion of investment in water. It's going to be very difficult to discharge it in investments, so to carry the projects because of the authorization process. So we need to work on the work in order to optimize, reduce the time of the authorization process. So this is basically, our recommendation, and we are moving on a timeline in order to basically improve also the new investments that we need to discharge. Imagine that the sectors annually needs about 6 billion euro, okay? And in order to do that, it is very important to have an authorization process for the infrastructure installation that is capable to allow the operators to carry out the projects. Well, thank you very much for your attention, and wish best for this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you for your intervention, for your speech, and I leave the word to, there is Paola Mercogliano of the CMC. Paola, ci sei? La cerco. We pass the other. No, Raffaella is not present. Raffaella Zucchero. Francesco Cavazza is the new speaker. Go, Francesco.
Hello, everyone from New York and from Italy. Thanks for the invitation, and thanks to the other organizer for the event, which is very interesting. I bring the apologies of Dr. Raffaella Zuccaro, which was not able to attend today. I will try to substitute her. And bringing our experience not only with climate change, but also with solution, with our responses to the crisis and how we managed and we try to manage the drought episodes of last years. But just let me introduce our Reclamation and Irrigation Board. We manage the longest irrigation infrastructure in Italy, which is located in the Emilia-Romagna region, so northern Italy, in the Po Valley, covering an irrigable area of around 175,000 hectares. And thanks to the major canal, which is a concrete line canal long with a length of 135 kilometers. So a very complex and big infrastructure. And we delivered, as said before, irrigation water for agriculture, which is our major water use. But we are very well characterized by a multi-purpose aim in water uses. So apart from agriculture, we distribute water for industry, civil and potable purposes, but also for environment. We maintain with our waters the river flow in some rivers in some episodes, or some natural wetland along the coastline. And we also carry out research, as we will see later in the presentation. As said before, we are in Italy. We are experiencing a very severe impacts of climate change. On the top right of the slide, you can see that last year, our main source, which was the Po River, which is the biggest river in Italy, could be walked across just without any boat, but just walking because of the low levels. Last years also we faced not only climatic challenges, but also socioeconomic challenges, mainly due to the rising in energy costs and in infrastructure maintenance due to the availability of pumps, solution, workforce, and increased costs for them. These implication of climate change had not only problems directly for us, of course, directly for crop production, where we could not irrigate in some occasion, or due to the high temperature and the heat waves, crop production was lower than expected. But we had also indirect effect in what is normally called the balance between the nexus between water, energy, food, and environment. Since we work with water, having the multi-purpose uses of it, we are very well connected with the environment. You saw before that we deliver water to natural wetlands. But last year, due to the low river flows, we experienced some threats of losing ecosystems in the coastline due, for example, to seawater intrusion. As said before, the saline wedge was a problem. It was also a problem for crop production and agriculture in general, also not only because of water scarcity, but also because of soil salinization, which is a problem. It tends to be a problem in the coastline because of seawater intrusion. But speaking of the solution of our experience, we saw that our approach to deal with the drought, to deal with the emergency, was built upon 4 pillars. First of all, we deliver information about research. We carry out research activities with the overall aim of saving water and reusing water to find new solutions for increased water availability. We carried out and we are continuously increasing investments in infrastructure, both for the maintenance and for the increased efficiency of them. Something which is very important is information provision and new pathways for energy supply. This overall aims at optimizing water and energy use, which goes hand in hand, with the aim of minimizing drought losses when scarcity, of course, protecting the environment and maintaining energy costs as low as possible. To do so, speaking of research, we have some infrastructure. In the case, we have 3 major infrastructure where we carry out research, both in an experimental farm, where we study new innovative solutions for water saving. These solutions are then tested and showcased in a demo area where farmers and stakeholders can visit and see innovation for water saving and touch the innovation with their own hands. And finally, we manage a natural wetland where we carry out investigation for boosting the ecosystem services of agriculture for the environmental protection, especially in the coastal areas to mitigate seawater intrusion effects. One big product of our research is the decision support system named ERIFRAME, which is owned by the National Association of Reclamation Board, ANBI, and managed by us, Canale Emiliano Romagnolo, and it is very, very helpful in the day-to-day agronomic routine of farmers in the irrigation activity to save water and also to boost the food security capability. We do not have to forget that we produce food with water, so to grant food security with such platform. Of course, on the investment side, we are always studying new solutions for water saving and for making more efficient our infrastructure management. We also seek for new water resources from the so-called unconventional sources, for example, with the use of natural-based solutions, so natural wetland, for the phytoremediation of treated water from civil plants. We also carry out a very in-depth activity for environmental monitoring, and we collect data on water resources, deliver it to some platform, and help stakeholders in the region and in Italy to manage water and to manage water scarcity thanks to such data. In here, we want to highlight how important it is to have sound and research-based decision. If we know the groundwater levels, the rate of seawater intrusion, we can better manage our canals, we can better manage our crop, and aid the decisions for a better resilience of the whole irrigation infrastructure and the farming activity itself. Finally, one thing that collects all these efforts is in water savings, both in water savings and with it energy supply. We have to remind that for us, water pumping is a very high demanding activity in terms of energy. We have an average cost, historic average cost of 3.4 million euros per year. But due to the last year's skyrocketing prices for the energy, we reached and we more than doubled this cost and we reached 8 million. This is a problem, and we also aim to produce and to find new pathways for energy supply, both to lower costs and, of course, to increase our sustainability the sustainability of our activity and increase with it our resilience to not only climate shocks, but also to the shocks in terms of prices and materials and energy availability. And with it, I want to renovate my thanks to all of you and deliver again the salutes from our General Director, Raffaele Ducalo.
Thank you, Francesco. And Paola Mercogliano, I think it's with us, but we skipped in another time. And then I leave the word to Raffaella Pergamo, and then we come back to Paola Mercogliano. Go. You are mute. No. Yes.
And about
I hear.
I want to speak about CAP strategic plan. Do you see my slide? And we have the new Italian CAP strategic plan since December 2022. And differently from past programs in the new 2023-2027 CAP implementation framework, the PSP represents a major element of novelty in that all the instruments that can be financed through the two main European funds affecting the primary sector, FEAGA and FEAS, fall under a single common programming document at the national level, outlining a national strategy for the agricultural, agri-food, and the forestry sector. The architecture of rural development represents another of the innovation of this programming. It is configured, in fact, within the strategic plan of the CAP, with a national type approach within which are contemplated the elements of a regional time, regional specificities. The PSP represents an ambitious strategy with respect to various objectives of competitiveness, environment sustainability, territorial balance, and food quality, placing itself in close synergy with other policies that are not strictly agricultural, which nevertheless reinforce its scope and effectiveness from PNRR to cohesion policy. Overall, the PSP provides 173 interventions, including those activated under sectoral interventions, and a financial envelope of nearly 36 billion euros in total for the period 2023 to 2027. The theme of water protection is therefore included in the CAP strategic plan by responding through the elements of green architecture to specific needs identified for strategic objective 5, fostering sustainable development and efficiency resource management, which relate to both quantity, efficient and sustainable use of water resources in agriculture, and quality, protecting surface and deep waters from pollution. Sustainable management of water resource goes through polluting inputs reduction, natural water retention measure with sustainable cultivation methods commitments, and forest sustainable management commitments and reforestation investments. The environmental enhancement of the irrigation infrastructure also falls under sustainable water management. And finally, sustainable irrigation management is addressed through 4 types of action: advisory services, irrigation advisory services, adoption and precision irrigation, investment for irrigation network efficiency improve, investments for irrigation efficiency improve at field scale creation, and restoration of the reservoir and reuse of wastewater. In this slide, we can see agroclimatic actions, compensatory payments, and investments are the macro action under which water resource specific measure fall with 18% of the PSP budget and 42% of rural development budget. Going into the details of specific intervention for sustainable irrigation management, the PSP includes agroclimatic and environmental commitments for the adoption of irrigation advisory systems and precision agriculture. In addition, some PSP interventions support investments to increase irrigation efficiency both at the farm scale through conversions of irrigation systems, and at the off-farm scale, interventions to modernize the irrigation network, as well as the construction or rehabilitation of reservoirs and wastewater reuse systems. All these main action with 7% of rural development budget. And finally, from the graph, we can see that all regions in Italy have activated at least one intervention that relates to irrigation. Most regions have interventions that support irrigation investment at the farm scale with the color green and purple, and the off-farm scale with color orange and light blue. In addition, several regions have activated agri-environmental commitments for the adoption of irrigation advisory methods, color red, and the precision agriculture system, which includes precision irrigation, color blue. Thank you for listening, and that's all.
Thank you, Raffaella. And I think that Paola Mercogliano is here. Are you ready, Paola?
Yes, ready.
Okay, Paola goes.
Okay, I'm sharing the slide. Okay. Can you see my slide?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Nice to be here. I'm Paola Mercogliano from the CMCC Foundation, the Mediterranean Center on Climate Change. Our institution has the main goal to provide information to private and public users about the expected feature of climate change in a so complex context like the Mediterranean one. And you know that this area is expected to be as a hotspot of the climate change. And I want to say that also, if we look at historical data, we know already that a lot of impact are already present due to the climate change. I want to briefly starting from what was expected as a main impact of climate change over the Mediterranean area. Coming from the result of a report provided by European agency in 2016. It was expected that among the impact of climate change on the Mediterranean area, there was the reduced water availability, the increased drought, the severe loss of biodiversity, increased of forest fires, the reduced summer tourism due to the very high temperature that we are facing, and also an increased health impact of the heat waves. And also we have to say that currently we already are having this kind of events. The increase of the frequency of this event is already evident. We are having also evident observation about the expansion of the habitat for disease vectors, and also is expected the reduced hydropower energy and the reduction of agricultural areas. And if we look at very detailed studies, we can see that this is also related to the availability of water over the Mediterranean area. All these main impacts were also reported recently in the work of the IPCC, that mainly looking at new result of the climate scenarios from AR6, from CMIP6, sorry, also gave the evidence that the same risk associated to water scarcity are expected to be present over this area. Then I want to emphasize that from about 10 years, we are already, aware that a water scarcity is expected over this area. If we look at recent past, these are data coming from an analysis of Copernicus dataset, ERA 5 reanalysis. We tried to build, to understand the drought that affected Italy during the last year, but that is also present, ongoing, is in 2023. And then thanks to the reanalysis, we can see in this picture that still from January, this area where the pixels are red represent an area where these indicators, the standard precipitation index evaluated on a 6-month scale, gave us an idea of where the drought is very extreme. Then, as you can see, this drought started the last year, but I already mentioned that also during this year, we are having more or less the same pattern. We start to have this water scarcity starting from the north part of Italy, still during winter period, and then during the years, this water scarcity affected also the other part of Italy. And of course, is still on also the impact are very relevant on agriculture, but also on industrial sectors, and also, of course, there are also many indirect impact on the health, on the quantity and the water quality, and so on, and also on the energy. Related to the impact on the hydropower sector. So this is what we are observing. This is what we are facing now. Coming from the new scenarios of from IR6. Here is reported the expected increase of temperature in the next year. Here you can see that, as I mentioned before, Italy as a part of the Mediterranean area is an area of the hotspot of the climate change. Then a very high increase are expected in the next months. Also, if we consider the more optimistic scenario. Considering the precipitation, if you look at the precipitation anomaly, this gives you an idea of the complexity of this area. Because if we look at this picture, due to the fact that during the different season in Italy, we have a area in Italy where the pattern of precipitation can be at a seasonal level very different. For example, in the northern Italy is expected an increase of the seasonal temperature, while during summer is expected a strong decrease. And while in the southern of Italy is expected along all the year a decrease. But of course, if you put all together, looking at the amount of precipitation at the yearly level, this seems to disappear, but this is only due to the fact that perhaps if we are interested to have information of the specific pattern that will have these indicators of the precipitation or of the not precipitation of waters of precipitation scarcity, we don't need to look at all the national details, but we need to make our analysis at a very local level. And for this reason, also when we define the adaptation strategies related to the scarcity of the water, we need really to work at the local level, because the pattern that we have could be very different due to the complexity of the Italian area, where we have mountain, coastal area, mountain area, the complexity, we have the alpine, but also we are in the Mediterranean context. If we look not at precipitation, but at a very specific climate indicators, here in this picture, you can see that there is a strong sensitivity to the climate scenarios that we consider. If in case of the more optimistic scenario, we have an agricultural drought is expected to increase from 15% up to 35%. And also for the hydrological drought, more or less, we have the same percentage of increase of the drought. And also in terms of frequency, we have a different depending from the scenario, we don't have change in the sign of the variation. It's expected that there is an increase of the drought, also if we will be able to realize the more optimistic scenario. And then this is something that we need to carefully consider when we define the adaptation. But also we need to emphasize the relevance of the mitigation action, because if we realize the more optimistic scenario of warming, we will have an increase of the drought of 35%. That of course is very high, but is something that perhaps we can manage better with respect to have an impact, to have a variation of the drought, of the frequency drought of 74%. That is very high variation to be managed. But as I mentioned before, the Italian context is very, very complex. Then we cannot use global scenario if we want to evaluate the impact. We need to use a more detailed analysis to support the action and the planning of the adaptation in area. If we look at the Eurocordex data, Eurocordex program is a part of the global program Cordex, where we have a lot of climate projection at a very high resolution, 12 kilometers. And thanks to this database, thanks to this data set of simulation, we are able to evaluate in an accurate way, mainly due to the fact that we are able to evaluate the uncertainty ensemble mean of these different models, but also the uncertainty associated to these scenarios. And we were able as CMCC to support, for example, the National Adaptation Plan to Climate Change, but also to support many other documents and strategy at local and regional level, thanks to the availability of this kind of data. Then I want to emphasize that it's very, very relevant to have the availability of very high resolution projection, but also of a monitoring system gave us the opportunity to define a very good climate projection. Here you can see the class of the extreme drought for short-term drought, working on 3 months period. As you can see, it's clearly and evident that we have an increase in the period of the 30-year period centered on 2050 of the extreme class drought, an increase of the drought class, especially for RCP 8.5. RCP is the scenario where we have highest emission. And the variation is expected to be 5% with respect to a reference period that is in 2081-2010. This was a picture provided for the National Adaptation Plan, and then you can see that if we consider the RCP 2.6 and RCP 4.5 that are more optimistic, RCP 4.5 is an intermediate scenario, you can see that the variation is more limited, but you have to consider that in the picture I reported only the extreme drought class. Then this is the class where the class of really consider the extreme drought event, but you can see that also the uncertainty is quite low. Then the signal of the increase of the drought is also confirmed in the next future by this kind of scenarios. This is the same picture for the medium term drought that is evaluated over a 6-month period, and also in this case you can see that there is a change of the increase. There is an increase of the variation up to 8%, and mainly the area where we have the highest value is in the southern of Italy, that is already affected by drought. And then this is all to be considered, because when we evaluate the anomaly, of course we are comparing the future with respect to the reference period where there is already a water scarcity to be considered, to be included in the analysis. This is a very detailed study that we provided over the Po River Basin. The Po River Basin is a very relevant for Italy because there are a lot of economical sector working with the water provided by the Po River. And in this study that was published in 2015, we already were able to put together climate scenarios and hydrological and hydraulic water. And we spent a lot of, we used our supercomputer center because this was a very computational high demanding cost simulation. And here we were able to show that was expected in the future to have a change in the pattern of the water availability over the Po River Basin. And specifically in both the scenarios that were considered in this study, we have a strong increase of low flow day from June to October, and an increase from November to January. And we think that this kind of studies can be very relevant to support adaptation in the next year. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Paola. No continues from the future, I think. We hope that people do investment on infrastructures in order to tackle these future trends. And I will leave the word to Rudy Rossetto that we talk about.
Good afternoon, everybody. Or
Well,
good morning if you are in the US. Yeah. And yes, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Here we go.
Rudy, you have your microphone stopped. Rudy?
Here I am.
Ah, okay, it's okay
Yeah,
now.
I'm sorry, but I was sent out twice. So.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think you can see my screen now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I will give you a very short presentation on managed aquifer recharge as a solution to adapt to climate change. We talk about adaptation, which in the end is how to anticipate the adverse effects of climate change and acting to prevent or to minimize damages. Mitigation, of course, is the most important option for climate change, but climate will continue to be altered as a result of emissions already in the atmosphere. So we have a strong need to adapt. When we talk about facing water scarcity, we need to go back to the division we have between conventional versus non-conventional water resources. That is, how do we plan to find the water we need? By deeper aquifer exploitations, or we want to build new dams, or we may have a further option, which is that of going into non-conventional into the use of non-conventional water resources. And we have three main techniques. One is water banking, the other is the reuse of treated wastewater, and the third one is desalination. I will talk about water banking today. Water banking is related to the conservation of water in the undergrounds, specifically in time when this water is available. That is a prevention measure. You cannot use this technique when you are in the middle of a drought. Yeah, and the scope is to protect and to prepare water resources against drought, increasing demand and uncertainties posed by the changing climate. Yeah, this is taken from down under people from Australia, yeah, where they were saying that traditionally they rely on dams, but now that they have to adapt to changing climate, they have also to store water underground. And when we talk about water banking, we talk about intentional recharge of an aquifer. That is, when we design and set in operation and manage aquifer recharge schemes, we intentionally increase the volume ordinarily stored underground at the soil surface. And the techniques we use are basically nature-based solutions because they mimic, enhance natural processes. We call it intentional in order to assure an adequate protection on the humans and the environment. It's not really something new because it dates back to 150 years ago, and in Italy was already mentioned in one of the first engineering geology books from the engineer Mario Canavari in 1927. It's developed from the 1950. When we talk about the managed aquifer recharge scheme, we talk about a geoengineered scheme, and the potential use and objective of this intentional recharge are those of increasing groundwater availability, compensate diminishing recharge, replenish aquifers against overdraft, control subsidence phenomena, combat seawater intrusion, and so on. What do we need to build a managed aquifer recharge scheme? Basically, we need three components: a source of water to recharge the aquifer and a recharge technique. Then we may have some other elements like a pumping system or treatment for before recharge or after we pump the water for various uses. There are several types of recharge. These images are taken from Australian guidelines for water recycling, which so far are the best guidelines for setting in operation managed aquifer recharge schemes. The most famous maybe is aquifer storage and recovery, but we have also dry wells, infiltration basin, induced riverbank filtration, dune filtration, which is very popular in the Netherlands, soil aquifer treatment schemes, which accounts for the larger MAR scheme in Israel for about 150 million cubic meter per year. Which is the situation in Italy? In Italy, there are very few schemes operating under the legal requirements of the Ministerial Decree 100/2016. And basically, there are two infiltration basins. One is in Emilia-Romagna, in the Rimini area, and one is in Tuscany in the Livorno province. In Italy, these techniques start to take steps deeply about 10 years ago with some projects financed. They were run mostly in northern Italy, in Veneto, and they were Drought, Aqua, Warbo, and they brought to the first test of infiltration fields, or a nice idea that is the one of forest infiltration areas that was started by Veneto Agricoltura. In Tuscany, we have been designing and setting in operation since about 5 years. The Life Reward MAR plan in Sovereto, which was funded partly by the European Commission, is a two-stage infiltration basin, which in its first phase saw the possibility to recharge from 300,000 to 1 million cubic meter per year. It's a nature-based solution. Its cost is of about 300,000 euros, and from the initial design to operation, it took 24 months. Basically, it's also completely automated, and it has the medal of behind the most automated MAR scheme at the global level. Basically, what we do, we divert water from the river Cornia when the river flow is above the minimum ecological flow, and thanks to a pump and to a field spectrometer that controls the quality, the water is then diverted in the first basin, which is the decantation pond. From the decantation pond, the water is sent to this basin, which is the through infiltration basin. And this is an image from initial infiltration moment from the start of operation. And this is how the basin looks like in full operation. It looks like a lake, but while it looks like a lake, at this moment is infiltrating 60 liters per second. Lately, in 1 month, thanks to the Protezione Civile fundings against the drought of 2022, we have enlarged the scheme to a full capacity of 2 million cubic meter, and this was started just last week with all the authorities there. So MAR or something else. I'm not going to say that this is the best solution. Yeah, I'm just telling you that managed aquifer recharge is one of the tools for water management and planning. And when deciding for a solution, cost benefits, water worth value, efficiency should be thoroughly evaluated. And viability studies should be done before deciding for desalination, use of reclaimed wastewater dams. While at present, it's very strong, the pressure exerted by lobbies. This is not a good way to perform sustainable water resource management. You cannot say we go for this or that without having a viability study, proper viability study. What are the advantages of this solution? Low investment cost. In example I show you, we are now with the new setting to a cost of about 400,000 euros. A dam of about 2 million cubic meter storage per year will cost something between 10 to 20 million euros. So you can easily calculate the difference. It's easy to identify sites, and you have no or minimal land loss while you have increasing of ecological value of areas. I'm going to my conclusion, and there are some buts. For the implementation of managed aquifer recharge schemes, we need careful planning and clear and sounding regulation, coordinated investments, monitoring of operation, and creation of managerial skills. And the environmental, energy, health, and other consequences must be duly considered while defining the potential and limitation of these options. I think I'm finished. Thank you for listening. I will stay some more, Mauro, but then at 4:45 I need to go for lectures. So I'm sorry I cannot stay to the end of the event today.
Okay, thank you. Rudy. It's always very interesting, this technique, this way to accumulate water, and it's interesting that to put the evaluation, the several ways in which we can accumulate or save water and other things. That so evaluation, cost benefit analysis is one of this evaluation. It is very important to make it when we go to make some investment in infrastructure. Thank you. Now, Emanuele Romano, CNR. Goes Romano.
Can you hear me?
Sí, okay.
Okay. So this presentation is focused on the role of the scientific institution and from the Water Research Institute of the National Research Council. And our work is on the one side on research, theoretics research, but also to support the hydrographic districts, in particular the observatories, in their works. So in my, sorry. Okay. So this slide just introduce what's, in my opinion, is one of the main research question. The colleague from the CMC show a similar slide when she mentioned the need to have a modeling chain from the climate metering, climate data, hydrology and hydrogeology modeling to water supply systems, and I'm adding also ecosystems modeling. Because the problem is that, in my opinion, we are able to represent somehow the situation in terms of indexes. I reported here some of the most common indexes to represent the situation in terms of precipitation, in terms of water resources, and also in terms of the ability of a system to meet the water needs. But the problem is to link the different indexes each other. So to quantify these links, a reduction of precipitation of 30%, for example, what does it mean in terms of resources? What does it mean in terms of ability of a system to meet the water needs? And in this case, I think we need for a shared modeling chain where the shade is among all the stakeholders that address their own needs on the same resources or on the same resources, I mean several resources. So the problem is to move from the meteorological drought to the socio-economical drought, and we need models to capture the non-linearities. This is, in my opinion, is a big problem, and I think that the contribution of the science should be addressed in this direction. And I will mention briefly some key points. The first one is the assessment of the snow water equivalent. In particular, I'm referring to the fact that the seasonal snow line is increasing in level, and the snowpack is expected to decrease. So we can have a significant variation of the hydrological and hydrogeological regime. This point is not, I mean, in qualitative terms, is well known, but we are still not able to quantify how and how much the variation of the seasonal snow line is affecting and will affect the hydrological regime, both in terms of seasonal variation and in terms of interannual variation. Second point, the secondary impacts. I'm referring to describe this point to a case study that we use as an example for a publication in 2016, so the Quito Reservoir. The problem is related to the increasing water demand due to climate change and to the increase of temperature and decreasing of precipitation, because these kind of impacts are absolutely not linear. A decrease of n% in terms of precipitation can result in a much larger increase in water needs. So in some cases, the secondary impacts can be larger than the primary impacts on the water resources itself. I think that in the research in this case is still not able to address this point. Third point, the infiltration processes. I'm referring here to the Petrignano d'Assisi aquifer, but just as an example. And I'm referring to the variation of the time lag, of the time lag between the precipitation, let's say, and the recharge to the aquifer. If we consider dry and hot scenarios for the next future, we can have a significant variation in the time lag. This means that not the reliability, sorry, I don't remember the term in English. The ability of the aquifer to recover after a drought episode can be reduced in terms of time necessary to have impacts on the aquifer after the recovery of the precipitation. Fourth point, the impacts on the ecosystem services. I think that this point is usually neglected or not sufficiently considered. But in my opinion, on a medium horizon is very, very important, because the risk is that in a few decades, 20 years, 30 years, we can see a very important degradation on the ecosystem services that in some cases are still ongoing right now. So to come back to the starting point, so the management, early warning and emergency and planning in case of drought. As I said before, we need for a shared modeling chain, but the problem is that one of the problem, it was mentioned also by Mauro at the very beginning, we have a lot of actors. I mentioned some here. So what's the role of the research institution? The problem is the research institutions are usually providers of not organized knowledges, except for the APCC, but the APCC act at a global level. And the policymakers and water managers, even if are quite fragmented, need for organized information. So in this case, what we have to do as a scientific community to support or to provide consultancy specific for local problems. It's a question that I leave to you completely open. I don't have answers, but I think that the research community should ask herself to understand which is really the role of the scientific community in the Italian context. And from my side, that's all, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emanuele Romano, that concluded your speech in a very interesting way. The problem of governance, to manage the problem, to tackle the problem of scarcity of water, and not only one problem of money or technique or technology, but also of governance. We have to governance the different subject and the different institution. it's a problem. It's a problem of nowadays. Fernando Nardi is here. Eccolo.
Yes, Mauro and everyone, good afternoon. And thanks for the invitation. Really interesting topic I've been following since the start. I will just go to my presentation, if you agree, Mauro, so that we move ahead, for the sake of time. Do you see my screen? It's okay? Do you hear me and see my screen? Okay, so following the agenda also, we discussed about organization. I decided to share with you this topic that is one of the pieces of the problem, and also my opinion, and also I'm presenting a project with different partners. So our opinion is also part of the solution. As you can see from the title, we're talking about transdisciplinarity. That means not only multiple scientific disciplines, but also the link with society, the stakeholders. So like we go there all here to like citizen. We need to have more interactive actions between the scientific and professional components, and also the on-ground needs, the issues, and also the behavior of the stakeholders and the citizens. So, in the slide, I'm a hydrologist. I'm a hydraulic engineer, hydrologist by background. I'm the director of the Water Center in University of Forense of Perugia. And what I'm presenting today is a PRIMA funded project on the UEFA Nexus. It's called NexusNess. And I'm proud to be the coordinator of this 3 years project funded by PRIMA. I don't need to introduce what PRIMA is and some international cooperation actions, because the previous colleagues already mentioned the PRIMA program about mainstreaming and achieving water and food security in the Mediterranean region. And one of the topics of the PRIMA mission is the UEFA Nexus. So what is the UEFA Nexus? What I said before, that we have together in this topic, the problem and hopefully the solution. UEFA Nexus is the 4 components: water, energy, food, ecosystem, that at the moment, this is part of the problem, historically, socially, and technically have been managed as with what we call silo effect, as different components. This was given by the need of establishing policies for managing complex ecosystem components, so that as we know, there is like water management with the sector, with the professionals, and a chain of guidelines, procedure that go in one line. The energy sector goes eventually in another line. The food production from crops, agricultural system, the food supply chain have other sectorial components, and environment. Of course, in many policies, in many guidelines, that there are interlinks. But what we are experiencing in the last few years, especially when facing complex challenges, the topic of today, droughts, floods, climate change, of course, and all not only the biophysical changing dynamics, but also changing society, and what I like to call shocks, stressors. So the droughts we have been experiencing in Italy is a shock. Expected, unexpected, also previous colleagues on climate change component, it's very complex, but these shocks are diverse. Let's also imagine the shocks on the energy topic by the Ukraine war. So these shocks are and will be always more and more impacting our lives. So the UEFA Nexus topic has the goal of finding a way so that the 4 components, water, energy, food, ecosystem, are managed without a seal effect component, in which the policies don't overlap, and are synergies for fair and safe allocation of the natural resources. So as you can see here, I will now go to the points. I have a few slides I'm presenting here from the Nexus project that I decided to share with you today at the concept level. The project is ongoing. We are in the middle of the project after little less than 2 years of work. So hopefully in the future, we'll see each other again and share the results of the project. At the concept level, what you see here, what we're trying to achieve. Some of us, water people, are confident and they are aware of water management plans. We are putting together WEF Nexus management plans, in which mean the zoning, the stressors, the actions for mitigating a nuisance effect of climate change and other natural disasters are included in a system which the four components go together. So basically, again, no time into technicalities, these complex schematics that is at the scientific point of view is showing something. From the left, from global scale, the Euromed scales we have to the regional scales, we have consolidated science. The WEF Nexus topic, let me add some background components. The WEF Nexus topic is not new to science. And this project is an innovation action. We are transferring science into operations. We are transferring research that was already done. Glad also that Rudy Rossetto, probably he left now, he was before me, is one of the partners, and the free world model is one of the model supporting the managed aquifer recharge projects in Tuscany. Tuscany is one of our case studies. What needs from Politecnico Milan? Sorry, I don't want to mention the other partners. Don't blame me also if someone's listening from the other project partners, team members. I want to say that on the left side of this plot, you see like complex science, a WEF Nexus model linking hydrological modeling, system modeling, and other WEF related models that need to go, this kind of fund that you see in the middle, they need to go into Nexus ecosystem labs, we call them. Living labs, real case studies in which we are not only providing studies, but we're working with stakeholders in the living labs. And add also the very important, the green schematic, socioeconomic part. There is no way of having a solution without thinking and including the social, economic, and environmental component also in quantitative terms. The willingness to pay. Who's going to pay for this? Is a top-down approach with incentives, or is a bottom-up approach in which people was going to change behavior? These are the questions are addressing in Nexusness. Is exceeded the international consortium partners. Some of them I mentioned before. And we have in these 4 Nexus ecosystem labs, very diverse, from Italy, Tuscany I mentioned, to Spain, the Douro Basin, and this is a Mediterranean international cooperation project. So we have Tunisia, we have Egypt, and I'm putting the focus now, again, what I said, on the need as part of the solution to engage stakeholder, to engage citizens. It's not only an awareness campaign, it's not education. The issues we are facing, like the droughts, again, let me repeat the topic of the workshop today, are co-identified with the stakeholders. They're going to tell us what they need. And you see some schematic about this innovation ecosystem approach and the fact that we need to work a lot, because when you go to the stakeholders in Tunisia and Egypt, we need to produce material in Arabic, okay? And this is a complex interactive project that we're dealing with. And again, what I said in terms of practical examples, and I will finish my talk to be in time, the issues. If there is a stakeholder willing to increase 20% tomato production, we need to calculate the interlinked effects on the water system, on the energy system, because, as you know, the moving water requires pumping system, like the previous colleague from the chair said. And the increased cost of electricity, 50% average in Italy, who's going to pay for this? How do we manage this? These are the issues we are facing. And again, stressing a lot the PRIMA mission and Nexus mission, not only of the interlinked welfare components, water, energy, food, and ecosystem, what is called the community of practice. stakeholders and citizens getting together with scientists, professional companies to manage and to transition to new system in which policies, guidelines, and management plans are for natural resources are managed without silo effect, with cross-sectorial work. These are our website, the links, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Fernando Nardi. We go ahead, and now the couple Ferrigno and Manganiello of Crea that talk about database and the use of this database of Crea. Goes. We don't hear.
Now you can hear me?
Okay, it's okay.
Okay. So, hi, good morning to everyone. Introduce me. I am Marianna Ferrigno. I'm a researcher of Crea PB, the research center that Alessandro Pesce already presented before. And I'm involved in research on water policies and water use in agriculture. And in the climate scenario, we see today we know that the agricultural sector must integrate policies for efficient use of water in a more comprehensive strategies for adaptive to climate change. And in this process, the use of shared information can help to define needs and to direct and coordinate policies. The SIGRAN and ANIA databases of Crea PB can support this process. As we know, strategies for adapting to climate change and preventing water scarcity include different measures. Previous speaker already talked about potential infrastructural action to cope with the scarcity from upstream to downstream, and it's necessary to increase water availability, improve water use efficiency, and to save water in the soil and in groundwater. Over the last few years, Crea PB developed on behalf of Ministry of Agriculture, Italian Ministry of Agriculture, 2 different digital information systems to support integrated management of information on water for agriculture, and to share this information useful to define sensitive areas and intervention priorities, to plan measure the most effective and useful measure in a given area, to spend better the financial resources, to quickly implement the intervention plans, and to estimate ex ante and monitor ex post effectiveness of these actions in terms of expected results. They refer to collective irrigation, mainly to collective irrigation provided by local agencies for water management that in general, but not only, are reclamation and irrigation boards. SIGRAN is the national information system for the management of water resources in agriculture, and is a WebGIS platform providing an overview of the Italian irrigation system. It is available online for planners of Italian irrigation system, such as ministries, regions, river-based district authorities, and LOMS. And here you can see the homepage of the website. SIGRIAN collects information, management, infrastructural and agronomic information about more than 600 loans and contain data about water supply points and related to water bodies, amount of granted and withdrawn water, about irrigation districts with related irrigable and irrigated area, prevailing on-farm irrigation systems, irrigated crop, and amount of used water, and even information about off-farm distribution network. And finally, it contains even self-supplying irrigation data. Besides providing information on water use in agriculture, it can help to assess the efficiency of the irrigation network and to define priority of intervention to improve this efficiency. According to guidelines for the quantification of water for agriculture approved by Italian Ministry of Agriculture in 2015, SIGRIAN is the system to which all the irrigation entities must transmit in a measured or estimated water volumes referred to collected or sub-supply irrigation, withdrawn, used, and returned to the natural flow. Guidelines also deserve to drive the setting of water pricing policies at national level in compliance with European Water Framework Directive. Here you can see a detailed scheme of guidelines content. DANIA is the National Database of Investment for Irrigation and Environment, born in 2018 to collect information on projects implemented by LOM, both planned and funded, for irrigation purpose or for protection from hydrogeological hazard. DANIA 2 is available online. This is the homepage of the website to authorize the members of region, ministries, research center, river basin district authorities, so that irrigation board can update project information about their infrastructural needs and share this information with the national and regional authorities competent for the programming and funding of these projects. The information contained in DANIA allow to catalog each project from a technical, financial, and environmental point of view, according to their type and purpose, to the vulnerability of the intervention area, to drought and desertification, to the status, the environmental status of water body interested by the project, and about the results, according to the results that can be achieved from the project, for example, in terms of water saving. This parameter can be used both in programming phase and in the monitoring phase of the funding project. Here we can see the currently consistency of DANIA data that currently contains about 2,600 projects in charge of more than 200 irrigation boards, and of the 23 billion euros of total amount of project, 89% is referred to irrigation projects. The sharing of data of these two databases between different institutions make it possible a coordination of information and a common base of information that can be analyzed and used in different phases of planning and implementing policies and at different territorial level. For example, in defining needs of measure of SIGRIAN data can contribute to draw up the drought management plans at irrigation district level, as for example, we can see in guidelines approved by Eastern Alps River Basin District. At regional level, the SIGRAN information can help to characterize the regional irrigation context and the consequent infrastructural needs, as we can see in a recent study of Veneto region that have, which reports an analysis of the basin in which to accumulate water resources for irrigation, based on the description of a regional irrigation context based on SIGRAN data. And at river basin district level, the information about the description, the irrigation context can be used, have been used to the update of river basin management plans for the third programming cycle of the water management of the water framework directive in relation to use of water for agriculture. Finally, at national level, it can be used to detail the context indicator of the CAP strategic plan. In supporting the programming of policies, Dani and SIGRAN contributed to the design of the Italian National Recovery and Resilience Plan measure referred to the financing of collective irrigation network, and in particular in defining the two performance indicator of the measure and related value of baseline and target achievable. In particular, the reference element of the two performance indicator were identified with SIGRAN information and such as irrigable area and water supply point. Dania, SIGRAN and Dania together help to quantify the baseline value of these two parameters. With Dania in project, the Dania information about funded project made possible to carry out statistics on the result of intervention per unit of expenditure. Joining all this information, it was possible to calculate the target achievable by the measure based on the available budget. Even in the implementation of the same measure, Dania was also the instrument through which the intervention were submitted by Irrigation Board and selected by Ministry of Agriculture. More in detail, Irrigation Board have entered the project in Dania, declaring their willingness to apply for funding, and then eligibility and selection criteria were defined and automatically applied to select this project basing on information collected in Dania, thus allowed to reduce the selection times. A special section of Dania data can be used to quantify output indicators useful for monitoring the performance of a single plan or policies. An example is what has been done for the strategic environmental assessment of the National Rural Development Program. Here we can see some indicators and related value by river basin district, but the same evaluation is possible at regional level at a single project level. Finally, beyond their own application, the combined use of the two databases made it possible to set up at national level a reward system for access to funding. In particular, to promote the quantification of water volume in irrigation, Ministry of Agriculture imposed the compliance with the use of SIGRAN by Irrigation Board as a precondition for financing in some of its public investment program, among which the investment irrigation program by National Recovery and Resilience Plan. In this procedure, irrigation board not compliant with water volumes monitoring in Sigran, the intervention plan in Indania could not be selected for funding. This fulfillment is verified in Sigran and recorded in Dania. So then the maintenance of compliance remain for all beneficiaries a post-financing condition to keep the funding. So this compliance represents both a precondition for funding and an ex post obligation. Within the reform provided by National Recovery and Resilience Plan, the Italian government has recently approved a law that to extend this procedure to all public fundings of collective irrigation investment. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. And I'm very interested to understand the possibility of information of this database. I think I will meet you to understand and to be informed. Thank you. Luigi Petta Enea?
Yes. Here I am.
Thank you.
I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, we see.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Luigi Petta from ENEA, which is the Italian National Agency for New Technologies, Energy and Sustainable Economic Development. And I belong to the Laboratory for Technologies for the Efficient Use and Management of Water and Wastewater. I will talk about a general framework about water stress and droughts, and then a few words about any activities towards a circular economy approach in water management. I will go very quickly on the general and current framework because previous colleagues already described. We can just say that latest new on the water front are not really comfortable, since there is the IPCC summary report who say us that we are almost missing the 1.5 degrees increase target, and most probably we are approaching to a 3.5 or even more increase of temperature in the century. We are living an extraordinary water drought, especially in northern Italy, due to a very dry and hot 2022 winter. There are some Italian regions who suffered about +6 degrees respect the average value, and there is a very big decrease in rainfalls, -60% almost in the Alpine region. ISPRA also say us that in last 30 years water availability has decreased of about 20% in relation to historic references. This situation is extraordinary, but we have to say that is the result of decades of water resource compromission, let's say. There are several water stress factors like urbanization, population growth, higher living standards, and climate change effects, which determine effects and risks. like water scarcity, water quality degradation, and uncontrolled food, and related impacts on water resource availability and on the environmental and economic and social fields. About 1 people over 3 do not have access to basic water sanitation services, and about the 80% of industrial and municipal wastewater is released in the environment without any treatment. This is the situation. In Italy, the situation is characterized by several indicators which enlighten some dangerous aspects. For example, Italy is the second EU country for water withdrawal for potable use. So we extract a lot of water and we use it in a very wrong way. The half of this total amount is used for agricultural purposes, but we are also the country which is at the first step for water consumptions, potable water consumptions, and for mineral water use. At the same time, we have one of the lowest water tariff in Europe, and one of the lowest investment level in water infrastructure also in Europe. Especially Italy suffered the so-called Italian water service divide, when there is a very sensitive difference between water services among different regions in Italy, and especially between northern and southern Italy. What we can do, there is a lot of actions that could be carried out to tackle the water stress. We can go to water demand management actions like reducing losses in water distribution systems, or wastefulness reduction like increased awareness in water uses, introduction of economic incentives, improving water use efficiency, and introduction of demand-driven resource allocation schemes. At the same time, we can work on increasing storage capacity. Surveys reservoir for rainwater storage are needed. Groundwater recharge actions, and favoring natural retention, for example, by applying natural-based solution also in urban context. And finally, we can increase water availability. Improved and efficient wastewater treatment will save water bodies from pollution effects, treated wastewater reuse, and desalination of seawater. All these actions need to be coupled to an industrial water cycle management. We need to clarify and simplify legislative framework and permitting procedures, and at the same time we need to provide to favor water users involvement and awareness raising. In green color, I enlightened the action which see ENEA working on these fields. Especially we are a laboratory dealing with wastewater, and in wastewater management, we can see the key to implement a circular water management approach, because at the moment wastewater treatment plants are simply have been considered like facilities only aimed at ensuring the final quality at the final discharge, but we need to consider that more and more like urban biorefineries. developing innovative solutions and approaches aimed at several objectives. For example, reuse of treated wastewater, sludge valorization and recovery in agriculture when the quality of sludge allows this practice, nutrient recovery, and energy valorization and recovery. This is so a new way to consider wastewater treatment plants, and the main goal is to provide a safe reuse of the primary resource, which is the water. In Italy, we reuse so few treated wastewater according to the national rule, which is the 185/2003, which fix 55 parameter standards. But we have to move to new concepts, to new legislative approaches, like the one given by the EU regulation 2020/741, which define 4 quality classes according to the parameters of the wastewater, and alternative agricultural uses, and also different irrigation techniques allowed. This regulation will be in force since June 2023, and at the moment, Italy provided a draft of a new Italian national decree on wastewater reuse, which is under public consultation. Let's go to the action carried out by ENEA, and one of the interesting projects that I like to quickly describe to you is the Value Sea-Ein project, valorization of treated wastewater and sludge in the view of circular economy and industrial symbiosis. This is a project which was recently concluded and was funded by Emilia-Romagna region under the FESR funding line. There are several partners like Bologna University, Ferrara University, Politecnico of Milano, and CNR. And the general objective of the project was to implement full-scale circular economy and industrial symbiosis approaches and technologies for municipal and industrial wastewater and sludge management value chain. During the project, we focused on different issues like wastewater reuse, recovery from wastewater as sludge, microplastic and emerging compounds, and industrial symbiosis approach. I will just give you a quick overview of the wastewater reuse activities, which include the realization of a prototype providing the online monitoring of wastewater quality, and we monitor that at the out of the secondary and tertiary treatment. We assessed the effect of such wastewater on the plant soil system through some cultures which were planted inside the wastewater treatment plant. We evaluated the fertilizing potential given by this wastewater, and providing technical economic assessment for full-scale reuse practice. We also evaluate the comparison between water demand and wastewater supply potential, and microplastics and emerging compounds monitoring. This was a very, let's say, a very successful experience, since after the project, the region signed with the water manager, which is ERA, an agreement for giving the wastewater to the agricultural site, and we are now closing the 6 months trial period for the full-scale application, and we are still going on with new experimental trials inside Cesena wastewater treatment plants. We also focused very much on microplastics, microfibers, and emerging compounds monitoring in wastewater. Emerging compounds which were targeted were bisphenol and phthalates. And we provided a proposal for procedures for sampling and analysis microplastics and microfibers. They were identified through FTIR and microscopy, and we created created a morphological database. Very quickly, other actions towards wastewater reuse are the activities carried out with the Italian Commissioner for wastewater. We provided the feasibility study on the different management options related to the final discharge of Catania City wastewater treatment plant, and we drafted out a plan which would be able, when fully implemented, to provide irrigation of 6,000 to 13,000 hectares in Catania province from summer to winter time. Again, we provided studies for the efficiency of the energy balance of wastewater treatment plants, and we developed a specific software which is a tool supporting decision makers, planners, and operators in the integrated water cycle for the evaluation of wastewater treatment plant efficiency potential in a specific territorial context. And finally, together with the Italian Ministry for the Economic Development, we participated and we coordinated the Reciproco project, which is the implementation of tools and initiatives on the circular economy for the benefit of customers regarding water. From one side, we identified global water stress index on basic and territorial basis, which is a procedure which will drive us to evaluate, let's say, a water footprint referred to water basin. And later on, we within this project, a lot of several urban living labs were carried out, proposing different topics related to water management, with the final objective to increase public participation and public awareness about water uses. That's it. Sorry, just a quick conclusion. We could say that water scarcity and droughts should be considered as ordinary condition and not anymore emergency. There is the urgent need of effective actions to reduce anthropogenic pressures, and water resource management should be provided more and more. Medium and long-term water management plans should be defined, and water resource allocation plan will be very important to set up, especially in emergency periods. And research actions should be harmonized, providing reference best practice and implementing effective technology transfer programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luigi Petta. I completely agree with your conclusion. And we go ahead, and I leave the word to Adriano Battilani of ANVI.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. I will try to share the screen. Okay. You can see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Now is in presentation mode. So we will talk about what we are doing in terms of infrastructuring and governing agricultural water network. And the main purpose is to find the way to increase the resilience to recurrent drought impact on our agro ecosystems. When we talk about infrastructure, we are talking about of something that is really shaping the ecosystem, is shaping the socio-economic context, is shaping the territories for decades or centuries. When we are doing a new infrastructure, this infrastructure will last over generations. And it's fair to wonder ourselves if it is really necessary to build or to refurbish an existing infrastructure or to building a new infrastructure. And during this meeting today, at the beginning, Dr. Grassi was mentioning that agriculture has to change and go toward less water demanding crops. Well, the problem is, the first question is it really irrigation avoidable? We can do it, we can move toward the different crops. What kind of crops? If we are analyzing the minimum water requirement of the normal Mediterranean crops, most of the Mediterranean crops that are characterizing our agriculture, we can see that the average summer precipitation, that is the red lines, are not matching with the minimum requirements, which means that we have to change the paradigm. Evapotranspiration is fast increasing. In the last 20 years, it's increased more than 20%. And in the average, we have peak of evapotranspiration occurring during the heat waves that are over 40% with respect to the normal condition. So in that context, irrigation needs to change paradigm. Now it's conceived as a means to increase productivity and profitability in favor of the farmer and in detriment of the aquatic environment. But it's not anymore the case. Crops need a minimum amount of water to produce. So if this water is not available, is not coming with the rain, is not something that we have available naturally, we have to integrate, we have to supplement water in order to have a productive crops. What will happen otherwise? What is already happening? What is happening is the food prices are reflecting the scarcity on the market and fueling inflation. What is happening in the last couple of years, and mainly 2022, is the inflation was rising up to 11%, but the food prices was increasing 15%, fueling inflation. But what is happening now, today? Today is happening that we are facing food scarcity. 2 weeks ago, Morocco stopped exportation of foodstuff. Spain is in this day importing more than exporting. Spain is the first exporter of foodstuff in Europe. UK, the Great Britain is lacking potato. They cannot produce enough because of the drought, but they cannot even buy on the market. And this is the point. If we are not anymore able to produce enough foodstuff for ourselves, we will face soon a situation in which there is no value, no money that has value for food, which means that there is no offer. You can have a good financial sector, a good industrial sector, you can earn a lot of money, but with this money, you cannot buy the food that is not on trade. So the situation is serious. We are facing cereal scarcity and we need water. We need water, as was correctly pointed out many times. In Italy, we have enough precipitation, and the precipitation are not even, are not well distributed from north, south, and so on. If we look on the distribution of the precipitation, we can see that there are areas in which we have high level of precipitation and are accumulating water that is then released and transported through the plain into the sea. What we have to do, we have to store, we have to hold this precious water on the territories. And this is exactly our mission and our plan. What we have to imagine, where we can store this water. There is not so much, there is no pack, but we know that the snowpack is out of our control. We cannot cool down the mountain and keep the snow. Lakes, natural lakes, we can better regulate the natural lakes, but we can have more storage basin. We can store more in the soil. The soil is the biggest reservoir we can imagine, and we have stored as much water we can into the soil, but also in the shallow water table and the aquifer, as Rudy was saying before. It's not a new idea, as Rudy mentioned it, but it's very effective and low cost. And we have also to promote as much storage we can in the root zone in order to catch as much as possible of the precipitation during the cropping season. So we are following a track that is a new paradigm, for instance, in Netherlands and in Belgium, and in many other countries in the North Europe that are now facing for the first time drought in their area, northern area. Keep the water on the territories. One of the less costly way is to allow, that is not possible today just because of regulation law or some let's say, opposition from people that want to keep more water inside the river. But one way is to use the water network, the canals, the irrigation canals as storage. As far as we have water in this moment and the canal are totally empty, let the water be pumped into the canals in order to distribute this water in the territories and keep this water in the soil and shallow aquifer reservoirs. That is a way to allow diffuse the rain harvest and aquifer recharge. It's not the point, aquifer recharge, as Rudy was mentioning, that's very effective and I'm actually in favor, but it's a diffused way to keep the water on the territory. But it's not enough. What we are proposing as AMBI is to create a network of interconnected, when it is possible, but a network of small storage basins, very small, around 5 million cubic meter each, more or less. And this can be used to keep water and to distribute this water that is not taken directly from the river, is the water that is dispersed in small stream, in small basin catchment that are not really contributed to the ecological flow of the big rivers. So this plan is an idea to create a system, not just an infrastructure, but an infrastructure that is inserted in a system that is collecting water, is interconnected, producing hydropower, for instance, during the day, and then using solar energy produced by floating solar panel to pump it up during the night when it is not used in order to have more energy, is able to connect and to collect the treated wastewater coming from the cities that otherwise can be used only during the day and during the season of irrigation, is able to recharge aquifer to make an effective contrast to soil subsidence or salt wedge intrusion. So is the way to enabling the infrastructure, are enabling to have an effective management of all the irrigation or water use schemas. So storage and supply. Then we have other soft infrastructure that are the irrigation methods or the decision support system. Those that was Francesco Cavazza and the CR were proposing before. So it's also a way to decarbonize water supply in agriculture. That is an energy demanding sector. And when we are talking about energy demanding, we are saying water demanding, because this energy is produced using water, hydropower, or using water for cooling in case of thermal energy. So we have a need of energy spread over the territory to make possible precise irrigation. So we need to create energy communities in order to apply a real agriculture 4.0, the digital agriculture. So we have to create water and energy infrastructure that can work together. This is an example from California and India. They are putting a solar panel, as CR is projecting to do in a part of the canal, to produce energy, but also to save water, because these solar panels are shadowing the canal, are keeping the water temperature low, and are reducing evaporation from the surface. So in one of these examples, they reported that they were saving 73 million of liters of water, producing 8.4 million of kilowatts. If we are imagining that we can cover about 5% of the Italian agricultural canal network, we can produce 13 gigawatts of energy, clean energy saving water, both because we are not evaporating, but mainly because we are not using this water for energy production. So, and we will bring energy in areas that now are off grid. So we can then finally apply other soft infrastructure, the precise irrigation, let's say. So we can secure on-demand water and energy access. That is the first condition. The high performing technology in irrigation are all water demanding in terms of access to water. They need water on demand. You cannot have water on shift. You cannot imagine a drip irrigation having water for 4 hours every 15 days, as it happened in Lombardy the last year. These kind of devices cannot work in this way, are not designed, not even imagined to work on such long shift and for so short time. And they need energy that must be spread everywhere in the countryside. That is not the case. To reach or to make a pumping station that is pressurizing an irrigation system need to be accessible and energy source. We need suitable water quality, enabling water reuse, and so on. But we are also talking about something that we can transform not transform, we are designing, really, we are indeed designing as multifunctional water and biodiversity storage. How we can store the biodiversity. Every kind of infrastructure is now classified as anthropic disturbance. So it's something that is altering a bit the hydromorphological status of the river, or in a way is creating a disturbance. We can avoid this disturbance, for instance, collecting the water and keeping biodiversity inside the basin when there is availability of water, keeping the biodiversity inside and let this ecosystem thrive, so grow during the period in which the river has not enough flow, is even below the eco flows, and then re-inject this biodiversity when the conditions in the river are suitable to restore the river in biodiversity. That is exactly the way to increase enormously the resilience of the river ecosystem in case of extreme water stresses. On top of this, what we want to do, we want to organize the territory in a way that we can certificate each of the steps. It's not enough to say we are doing. We want to demonstrate and certificate the impact and the action we are undertaking in favor of the environment and the sustainability of irrigation. So we are promoting, we will present in May, a new standard, Goccia Verde, that is a private standard that is certificating the sustainability of the water uses. And it works on the territories. It's not a production certification, it's not certificating an apple or a pear, it's certificating a process. The process means that the consortia will undertake and in a way propose and dictate actions that the territory will take over, and the farmers and the producer organizations that are inside these territories will apply. So coordination from the consortia that are in charge of the management of the water in this area, and evaluation of the impact and continuous improvement of the sustainability. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Battilani. Very interesting, your point of view from AMBI and the very importance of irrigation on agriculture, also to lower the prices of food in this moment. Very important. Thank you. I want to introduce Andrea Ferrone of Suez, that we talk about desalination, experience of desalination. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody. Good morning, good evening. So I'm here to present Suez experience in desalination. First of all, quick introduction about Suez experience in water systems. Nowadays, till now, Suez designed more than 2,500 wastewater plants, more than 260 desalination plants actually on run, more than 10,000 water treatment plants, and giving you an idea, more than 3,000 drinking water plants. Nowadays, 1 billion of people, we could say, is served by a plant designed by Suez. What is the expertise Suez have inside? We have a bench of process engineers and technicals that are quite familiar with wastewater reuse, biosolid, drinking water, and desalination technologies. we can cope with internal, but also with external technology and partners to cope, to follow the full scope of a full design plant to produce potable water, both from ground or surface water and seawater as well. We have a big experience and qualified people to develop, design and build quite large plants. And we can say that since more than 80 years, Suez is managing all the projects from engineering and production, engineering and procurement to design and build and financial. We are on the top of innovation for water by solid and air, and the scope of this innovation nowadays is focusing in improving energy efficiency, resource recovery, and of course, sustainability. We have a full worldwide recognized ability to commit with the delivery of plant on time with all the guarantee tested and proven. And we are as objective two of the sustainable goal fixed by 2030 that are the SDG 6, ensure availability and sustainability, sustainable management and water salination for all, and make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, full, and sustainable. Now, a focus on the desalination. What is the scope of desalination? Is to respond to the very actual challenge that is the water scarcity issue. The desalination on the coastal region nowadays represent a good solution to produce clean and good water for the arid region. The capability to build a RO desalination plant stays in the good pretreatment, good design and robust pretreatment solution, and to cope with the RO design that could be flexible at all the condition the seawater can, at all the condition the seawater have during the life plant. The plant, desalination plant must be sustainable, and to check its sustainability during the design, Suez carry out study to modeling the brine reject in the seawater. On the top of this, in the design, the application of renewable energy is on the top of the attention, as well as the less chemical consumption. Of course, this sustainability has a big impact in the optimization of the operation and maintenance performance. The purification, the RO system and the desalination process are as well applied in industrial field in order to produce the Sorry, do you see my screen?
Oh, only we hear. We don't see any slide at the presentation.
Okay, sorry, I didn't understand. I'm trying to.
I thought that you make only.
No. It's my fault. Now, do you see my screen now?
No.
Okay. Now.
Okay.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yes. No. Okay. Now.
Sorry.
Now we see.
Okay. Anyhow, the introduction was just on Suez capability. Now I'm sharing the challenges RO is addressing with. So we are talking about high quality of water, useful for the arid region, and especially for coastal region, we can provide good water from desalination. And how to perform this desalination is to have a robust pretreatment section, and to design the RO with a good flexibility design. The sustainability is a focus in the sweats business, and during the design, sweats performed by his own many times the brine reject modeling inside the sea, and design the plant putting attention to use as much as possible renewable energy, and to reduce as much as possible the use of chemical, in order the plant could be quite sustainable. The operation and maintenance performed is as consequence optimized and reduced. The RO design is used as well for the purification of processed water, in order to reuse the wastewater and in service water or demi water in the industrial plant. This is a map of the RO desalination plant used for production of potable water all around the world. As you can see, we designed and built a big amount of plants in the Middle East, in Australia, in Latin America, and 3 as well in Europe, 2 of them in Spain, and 1 is under construction in Italy, that is the plant of Elba Island. This is a draft of the main reference we have in desalination. One of the biggest plants we perform has been the Melbourne plant in Australia. Just to give you a quite short picture of the plant. This plant represents a 30-year contract that will be carried out by Suez in maintenance and assistance till the 2039. The project capacity is huge. We are talking about 440,000 cubic meters per day, and this produce potable water for a population of 4.5 million of people. The reverse osmosis plant is made of 27 trains of first pass and 24 trains of second pass. And nowadays, on the plant itself, are 4,200 employees are working from 20 different nationalities. The biggest challenge this plant is respond to is to cover the demand of potable water from Australia that since many years from now is facing a big drought crisis. The solution has been a modular solution in order to minimize the time of erection, and every part of design has been studied to minimize the ecological impact. The result has been to produce a huge amount of quality desalted water, and one of the most technically advanced and environmentally friendly plant. Another plant we did, and I want to show you, is in the Gulf area in Middle East. The capacity is quite the half of Melbourne, and this is a plant with 26 train and 12 in the first pass and 12 train on the second pass. In the Gulf area, the problem with the seawater is the presence of algae and colloids components. So in this area, a particular attention must be done to the pretreatment with the flotation. Suez has many patented machines used to prevent and to solve this problem with this kind of seawaters. Another big plant in Australia is the Perth plant on the west coast of Australia, and this covers 2 million of habits in population. Smaller than Melbourne, in any case, cover a big amount of water produced. We are talking about 143,000 cubic meters per day. 12 trains at first pass and 6 on the second pass. Sri Lanka, this one is under construction, and it represents the first seawater desalination in Sri Lanka. Suez is taking care about design and will carry it out as well the O&M during the next 7 years. And now the focus I want to point out to your attention is the plant we are now erecting in Italy. This plant is the desalination plant of the Elba Island. Elba Island is an island in Tuscany region, and nowadays is fed by potable water from the mainland by means of a submarine pipeline 10 kilometers long. On the top of it, the mainland produced the water to Elba Island, taking source from the wells on the seashore, and continuing taking water from this source. Of course, we are increasing the salinity of these of the well sources. So the mission of the project has been to make the island self-sustained for potable water perspective, producing inland water from the sea. To give you a rough idea, this, let me say, is the first example, will be the first example in Italy as an appreciable site. We are talking about only of 6,900 cubic meters of drinking water per day, but nevertheless, with this amount, it represents the biggest potable water plant from seawater in Italy. The population served by this plant is going from 3,000 people during winter time, but it could arrive till 300,000 during summertime. In this case, Suez is taking the design and bid and operation contract, including one year of O&M. This reverse osmosis is made by means of 4 trains. The solution found has been taking the seawater, passing through a battery of sand filter, through a perfiltration, and then a single pass reverse osmosis with energy recovery system. To remineralize water, make it potable, there is a final mixing with well water. I'm talking about inland wells, pre-treated for the purpose. For this project, intake line and brine outfall is out from the scope of Suez, but is rejecting and taking water 1 kilometer and too far from the coast. Nowadays, the erection work are just started. We are counting to produce water at the beginning of 2024. And what I can show to you is the 3D rendering of the design we finalized. So this is the outline of the plant, the basin for the seawater from the intake, the battery of dual medial filter, the cartridge filter upstream the RO, the 4 trains of RO, and the well water treatment to remin the water. At the end, the potable water basin that supply water to the entire island. Challenge faced in this RO design, but generally speaking, can be extended, this pitch can be extended to every RO design, is to design of the RO must be suitable to afford the variation of total salinity and temperature during all the plant life. In Elba Island, we studied carefully the design in order to minimize the skid dimension that must lifted and transported in a small island like Elba. And the use of pressurization system gave the opportunity to reduce at minimum the specific consumption per cubic meter of permate. To give you a rough idea, we are talking about 3.9 kilowatt per hour per cubic meter of permate produced. The design of RO membrane should be quite accurate because the purpose is to produce potable water. So we have to guarantee a high salt rejection, but as well, we must guarantee rejection of ion not wanted in the potable water, such as boron content that is quite critical for potable water, that in fact, the limit is less than 1 milligram per liter. Suez is Suez put the best, a big part of the attention, of course, on innovation. And in RO of this, in the desalination RO as well, we are putting effort to improve the treatment in order to optimize the sustainability of the plant. Nowadays, we are increasing and we are designing new CDAF filter in order to pre-treat the seawater more efficiently. And this is in particular applicable for hot seas like Middle East or Mexican, Caribbean Gulf. We are studying solution to remineralize with more and more compact limestone filter, and we are investing in research to recover from the concentrate brine high value material such as magnesium, lithium, and rubium. This is important to maintain the circularity of the economy in this plant as well. I thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, And last but not least, Vigili del Fuoco, for your interview. Lorenzo Elia or Marco Ghimetti? I have a double name. Let's present yourself.
Yes, I'm Lorenzo Elia. I'm the director of the National Operational Center on behalf of the Central Director of the Emergency, Marco Ghimetti. I just start to share my video. Can you see it?
Yes, we see.
Okay. As I said, I'm Lorenzo Elia, and I'm from the National Fire Corps. What I'm going to speak about today, it's about what climate change brings to the Italian firefighters. I'll try to be very fast because it's, I think, enough late. I try to define what is the direct impact of the climate change on the fire and rescue service. First of all, hotter temperatures. Then we can see that about our experience that there is even an increase of heavy rains all over the year, increased drought, and then ocean warming and rising. Even the ocean rising can give some problem and some trouble to us. So about drought, so that is the main focus of today. Drought, the first the first causes that we can see as firefighter is forest fire increase. What about the forest fire increase? We can do some consideration on what is the trend of the wildfire during the last few years versus the total intervention of firefighters in Italy. We have in Italy about 1 million of intervention for a year. And the wildfires, it's a percentage that can go from, let's say, from 5% to 12%. In 2018, we have a decrease because it was.
Excuse me. We see only the front of the.
Okay. Sorry. Sorry.
Thank you. You have to skip.
I'll try.
Thank you.
I'll try to share again. Now it's okay. If I move, we can see it. If I move,
we see the single slide.
Okay, you can see the change of the slide. Yes. Or it's still freezing the slide.
Oh no, we see the single slide.
Perfect. Okay. So I was showing which is the trend of the wildfire versus the total intervention by year from 2017 to last year. I was showing that there was a good value in 2018, then we have and we start again to increase the number. In the past, we had a situation that, along the year that during the first quarter of the year, the forest fire were concentrated to the north of Italy. Meanwhile, during the rest of the year, the south and the middle of the nation were interested. But this during the year is changing because, as we can see in this picture, this is a distribution of the number of forest fires along the year. This one is for the 2018. This is for 2019, 20, and 21. As you can see, there was a main concentration during the summer. There is the worst period. It was the worst period for Italy. But as you can see, moving toward 2020, we start to have some fires, a lot of fires, even in the winter campaign. You see here and here. Last year, it was very relevant. This increase of winter fire, and this year, of course, the scale is different. We can see something of similar of the last year. So what we can say that the drought, of course, bring more forest fires. More forest fires bring wooded area reduction, and the wooded area reduction combined with the soil absorption capacity reduction due to the fact that we don't have more vegetation, and with the increase of duration and the intensity of heavy rains, the question is, can bring something like a flood increase. Looking at the data that we have, this is not direct connected. In fact, the green line that you can see here it's the percentage of the water damage intervention that we registered in the same set of years, and we can see there is almost constant this value. So probably as conclusion, we can say that drought, of course, increase the number of wildfire. For sure, is modifying the distribution in time and in place of forest fire because it's moving toward the winter season, and seems not to affect the floods. This is what it's our consideration about drought, and in very, let's say, fast consideration. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. We finish almost in perfect line with the program, our meeting. Let me thank all the speakers. Let me thank the co-organizer, Crea, and chair. Let me thank also all the people that in some part of the meeting have been present at this meeting, at this very interesting meeting. Bye-bye for this moment. I think it's with many of you, we meet for too deep the thing that we talk about this afternoon. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you. Thanks to all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.